Welcome back to the AI Minds podcast. This is a podcast where we explore the companies of tomorrow being built AI first. I'm your host, Demetrios, and this episode, like every episode, is brought to you by DeepGram, the #1 speech-to-text and text-to-speech API on the internet today. Trusted by the world's top enterprises, conversational AI leaders, and startups. Some of them you may have even heard of, like Spotify, Twilio, NASA, and Citibank. In this episode, I am very thankful to be joined by the CEO and co-founder of Arini AI, Abdul. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. How are you? Very excited to be here.
Likewise. Well, honestly, I love your story. You started in Saudi Arabia, you got educated in Jordan, and then you took a turn for the US. You decided you wanted to live that startup life after a stint at Harvard. And one thing that you told me is you tried as hard as you could not to graduate Harvard because you wanted to create a startup before you got done with your education because you had it in your blood. And now you are living out your dreams. But before we talk about what you're doing with Arini I would love to hear about your time in startup land in San Francisco because I think it's fascinating when you were working at Threads.
Yeah, absolutely. After graduating, I joined Threads. I was working as a full stack engineer there and really focused on search in the beginning. And the Threads team is absolutely incredible. Really, the reason I joined is that I wanted to learn from the best product minds, engineers, designers, and very grateful that I got to do that because I think it
Yeah.
really shaped a lot of my product thinking, product intuition. So yeah, it was a great time there. Spent a lot of time on search and then transitioned more into applied AI. So that's around the time when ChatGPT started coming out, the APIs were out. So everyone was thinking, okay, how do I take this tool and enhance the product experience?
Yeah.
Um, just so for some context, Threads is a communication platform. So, think Slack for companies, an async and sync tool. Um, so we're doing a lot of things like prioritizing notifications, summarizing conversations and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. I should have caveated Threads with it's not the Threads that people are probably thinking about today because of the whole Twitter challenger of Zuckerberg's Threads. But I knew about Threads from back in the day because I loved listening to podcasts and just ways that this guy who is very big on async communication talks. And I think he's the CEO of Levels
Yep.
dot health or level, yeah, levels
Thanks.
health or something like that.
Well,
And they talk about it all the time.
yep, absolutely. I remember the feedback he used to send. So worked a lot on of the stuff that he was suggesting and we were discussing at the time. Yeah.
Well, so you spent time doing search. I bet those search chops really came in handy when RAG started to become
Oh,
the normal design pattern.
honestly, it was probably the best investment. One of the best investments that I got was like spending a lot of time figuring out search. And also, so actually, other than search, I spent a lot of time on triaging flows. Because like when you think of a notification system, notifications are coming, you want to prioritize them. And then once we get to like discussing Irini a bit more in depth, like triaging notification becomes so critical, because you have to tell people how things are going, like what are the agents doing. So that ended up being super, super, super valuable for me.
Fascinating. So in the context of Threads, you were thinking about notifications, like what should we show someone as far as if they got mentioned or what is the most important piece there?
And how do you allow them to triage it as fast and efficiently as possible?
Hmm.
Um, Yeah,
Wow.
so that's the critical part is like, if they have like 200 notifications, how can they like triage them in 15 minutes as opposed to like 3 hours? How do you populate the important things up top and tell them, hey, this is critical, you need to check it out? As opposed to just like weeding out the signal from the noise is so critical. And I think so many companies actually miss that. Because it is a very hard problem, to like solve, like proper notification triaging. Uh,
Yeah, knowing what is important versus what is just you got tagged in
Absolutely.
random on
Yeah.
some meme.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you spent some time at Threads. And then from there, your co-founder came and worked with you, and you guys said, "This is it. We're out of here."
Yeah, so Rami and I always knew that we were gonna start a company together. So while I was actually at Threads, we were trying to build a browser. And that didn't end up working, but like we really enjoyed working together. So he ended up joining Threads. We're working at the same team, and really early on, once he joined, we kind of knew that we wanted to do something. You know, we wanted to do a startup together. So we started researching a lot of different verticals, like different markets, just to get a sense of like where are the real problems in the world. You know, obviously we wanted to fix a real problem, like a real pain that people are facing. So we talked to charter bus companies, lawyers, we were thinking of search, like so many different, and it took us a while, like months we're talking, you know, of just like researching. When we got into healthcare, we were fascinated by how chaotic the front desk is. Like truly you enter and it's so anxiety inducing. You're getting calls, messages, voicemails,
Ooh,
fax is still being used.
ooh,
People waiting on the line to like check in. It was insane. There's so much. I remember one time I went to this general clinic in San Francisco. Um, the day I was shadowing them just to learn a bit, two of the front desk quit that day. So there were a total
no.
of four. Two quit. So I actually had to sit and assist them in figuring out how to triage all these notifications that are coming in.
Oh, man.
So yeah, it was super chaotic, and that's really where like we started thinking of, you know, Arini, like what can we do to help solve this problem? That's like the initial phases of the idea.
You just glossed over something there that I would love to get a little more context on is how did somebody let you into their clinic and just have you hanging out working with them on the first day when you're shadowing?
So yeah, I mean, you kind of just walk and knock and talk and until you find the right person. I mean, not everyone agreed to us doing it. We definitely got shooed away by a lot of practices.
And what was the ask? Can we just hang out?
Yeah, can we learn? Like we're, you know, our background is in this and that. We want to start a company. We're researching different verticals. Can you just allow us to shadow you for a few hours? And we actually found quite a few groups that like fully gave us like full access. They're like, You want to go to the back? You want to see how we do stuff in the back office? Yes, go. You know, you want to stay in the front? Go." Because they had like we sat down. I remember this very like vividly. Literally, Rami and I were working on Mission Street. I'm not going to say the name of the practice, but it's like a big group. We knocked on the door. The owner was in there on Saturday. Like the practice is closed, and he was grinding like through paperwork. We went, we talked to him, and we're like, "Hey, we're interested in doing something for healthcare. We don't know what. Can you teach us?" And we sat down for a few hours, and he told us all his problems. He's like, back office problems, front office problems. And at the end, we're like, "Can we just see it ourselves? Like, can I come on Monday once you open and see it in practice?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. I don't care. Like, come, you know?" And we did
Nice.
that, and that was honestly like a game changer to us because we saw it in real life how chaotic it is. And we did that a few more times until we built a hypothesis, which is there's a huge staffing shortage. It's really, really hard to hire people on the front desk. And even if you hire, there's a lot of churn. So you hire someone, you train them, you spend so much money and time training them, and then they leave like a few weeks later, a few months later. So you
Yeah.
have to find someone else.
Yeah,
That
because it is so stressful.
Yeah. So that problem very much excited us to solve it. Yeah.
It feels like there is a need there, much more it's very much like you're selling painkillers versus vitamins as
Absolutely.
opposed to the browser, I
Oh,
think.
yes. Yeah. So interesting thing. So after working on our first startup, when we were thinking of like the next startup we wanted to do, we put a few criterias that were absolutely crucial for us to hit. First thing, it has to be like actually a painkiller, like a real problem. If it really doesn't exist, people are suffering, sort of thing. You know, you wanted to have very clear monetization strategy and very clear go-to-market strategy. And with our previous startup, we had none of these. So we really focus on like figuring out go-to-market, monetization, and solving a real problem, like a painful problem. And that's where Arini came. You know, the market is ready for it, the technology is there, and sure, it takes a lot of effort to like make the system that we're building reliable, it's scalable, but we've built reliable and scalable systems before. and like that's what we think we're really good at. So we took that problem and started cranking at it and until we started getting clients and expanding. Yeah.
So you end up saying there's a lot of pain here. We need to build something. It's the front office. There's a staffing shortage. It's anxiety inducing. How do you land on Arini and what it does today? And what exactly does it do?
Yeah, so some context there. So Arini is the complete AI solution for patient communication. Our focus is serving dental practices, primarily in the US and Canada. We mainly work with DSOs. These are dental support organizations, basically a group that owns many locations, many dental practices. So we're talking anything between like 10 to 100. So the solution that we offer is an agent that analyzes phone calls and text messages. So it is omni-channel. We're not just focused on the voice. We're meeting patients where patients are. And the goal is to schedule, reschedule, cancel, confirm, like really replace that whole communication cycle that currently either a call center does or the front desk has to do. And they spend hours doing it every single day. So that's what the product does.
Why did you go after dentists and not the doctors?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the dental market is really interesting in the sense that there's a lot of consolidation happening right now. So these DSOs that I mentioned earlier, they're acquiring a lot of smaller practices and putting them under one umbrella. And this is quite unique to the dental industry. There's also like similarity in optometry, for example, and a few other healthcare verticals. But dental has a very high growth rate for these mid-market DSOs, like the 10 to 50 locations that want to reach 100 locations. So for them to scale to that extent, they have to hire so many people. And with the staffing shortage, that's pretty much impossible, you know? So Arini solves that problem by offering them a solution that handles all of communication for them. You don't need to hire 4 people in the front desk. You need to hire one person to greet real patients that are coming to the office. And then we can handle all the communication that doesn't happen face to face. And we've seen that in practice. Like there are many groups that are using Arini not just as a call overflow system. We're answering 100% of their calls, like truly
Wow.
100% of their calls, booking 700 to 1,000 appointments per month per location. And that's like one
Wow.
location from the 20 that they have. So like the ROI is crazy, you know. That's why a lot of people are starting to get into this like industry. Competition is rising. That's like nothing to hide. There's like, it's such a clear problem to solve. You just have to solve it reliably, effectively. You need to scale well. It's a very edge heavy problem to solve.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit more about some of the challenges that you feel you hit as you are building out these voice agents that can scale and can be useful to both the dental companies and the end user who's having to talk with them.
Well, the thing is, the quality of voice in general, like we're talking transcription, LLM synthesis, if you're thinking of that like whole cycle, now we have real-time API, it improves things, or like that's the next level. But like when I really started, we were building that pipeline and we use that pipeline until now, actually. The complexity there is like, okay, how do you do interruptions properly? How do you reduce latency? How do you make sure that when someone says their insurance, you actually write it down properly? Because if you don't write it down properly and you book an appointment, the front desk is going to have to call the patient and get the information again. So a big part of Arini doing things reliably, that's what matters. Building a demo is not too difficult. Actually making it scalable and reliable to take thousands of calls every day, that's where things get kind of crazy. um,
Yeah.
so we spent a lot of time on the infrastructure, making sure that we can do that before like scaling. I think humans in general have been trained to absolutely hate talking to bots over the phone, including me. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like everyone, like for the past 10 years, when you call your bank or the airlines, it's so horrible
So
that
painful.
like if you hear like not a human on the other end of the line, you'll just hang up. You know.
Yeah.
So we
Or
as
yell
AI,
human. That's
yeah,
my go-to. I just start yelling, "Human, human, assistant,
exactly. Or
assistant."
operator, just
Yeah, operator.
leave me alone. I don't want to talk to an AI.
Yeah.
So how do we Sure, the technology has improved, but people still have that perception of AI is not there, like these bots are stupid and slow, blah, blah. So we actually spent a lot of time on trying to figure out how do we give the end user, the patient who's calling, enough confidence so they at least try it out, you know? So it comes down to that initial greeting. Hi, thank you for calling Arini Dental. How can I help you? Is it better to say, how can I help you? Or who do I have the pleasure of speaking with? Or should we add background noise? Or, you know, there's so many different variants. Because really what we want is we just do not want them to hang up when they hear the greeting.
Huh.
We want to convince them that this AI is smart enough to handle their requests. So actually, we recently ran an A/B test and we found that it's a lot better to ask for the caller's name in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, hi, thank you for calling, you know, Smiles Dental. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with is a lot better than, hey, thank you for calling Arini Dental. How can I help you? The reason being, you're giving them a very specific question. They don't have to think, like, what is your name? Oh, my name is Jason. Oh, hi, Jason. How can I help you today? And that already showed them that the latency is low. It
Uh,
repeated your name properly. It sounded good. Let me try it out. You know, I think that's the hypothesis that I'm building around this. Like, that's why this greeting performed better.
Sidebar, Smiles Dental, if that doesn't already exist, great name for one of these 100 person or 100 location, dental spots. The the thing there's a lot of pieces here that I think about all the time, specifically when dealing with agents, and are you calling out that it is robotic or it is AI at any point, or do you just let the end user figure that out?
So we make it easy for our groups to just decide if they want to add that like announcement.
Cool.
Hey, this is whatever name the practice's name. This AI agent helping to book appointments, so on. So we can do that. We by default don't start doing that because we've actually seen it doesn't really change the conversion much. You know,
Nice.
like the success rate. And I think it just like delays getting to the point. Like people are calling to
Yeah.
just book an appointment. And if you get them that appointment in under like 2 minutes, they don't care. They genuinely do not care if it sounds robotic as long as it does the job, you know? And I think that actually something probably that differentiates us from a lot of people. The optimization is not just make it sound as natural as possible. It's get it to do the job as fast as possible. You know, no one wants to be on the phone for 7 minutes, even if it sounds perfectly like a human. Get the job done, you know? Like, including me, I don't want to talk to an AI for like 7 minutes. I just want my appointment. Give it to me. And I think that like really helps us figure out what work to prioritize, you know?
When you're plugging into these dental groups and you recognize that Arini does that front end or that customer relation, are you also getting access to plug into the systems of the dental groups?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it is we have to integrate. So it's called the practice management system. So that's where they schedule appointments. That's like think of it as the CRM and scheduling of for dental practices. They have the X-rays and all that information. So we have to connect to these systems. And actually, that's something that we spent a ton of time on in terms of being able not just to connect to practice management systems, rather be able to connect in a way that allows us to schedule very complex appointments. So different groups, for example, have templates on their schedule. Some days they want you to stagger appointments. Some days they have extra assistants so they can double book appointments. So that's when things get very complicated because when we're onboarding a practice or a group, they're basically onboarding us as if we're a new like front desk receptionist and they're teaching
Yeah.
us. This is how emergencies are booked. This is how cleanings are booked. On these days, you need to stagger. On these days, use these temp. So we have to take into account all these settings, and we invested a lot of like infrastructure work to be able to support that at scale. You know, so you can go and edit your settings, and it instantly knows how to schedule appointments properly for you because that's a big part of it. If we're putting appointments in the wrong spot, then we're not doing anything
Nobody.
useful. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, you're creating more work because then they gotta go back and reschedule or
exactly.
and the end user is going to be frustrated because they came to what they thought was an appointment only to find out that they're double booked, and then they have to wait longer or something like
Yeah.
that.
And something interesting here is that different groups can use the same exact scheduling software completely differently. For
Oh,
example, templates for one group mean that you should book here. For another group means that you cannot book here. For a third group means that some, depending on the title of the template, you can book here. Some you can. So it kind of has to be a very flexible system that you can figure. And like doing that at scale was quite complex, but I think we did a really good job with it. So now like onboarding is like very streamlined. You get set up, get started, test out the product, and then you go live, taking real patient calls. It's not actually just calls; it's calls and complete text message support. So if someone texts, they want to cancel, confirm, they can do that as
yeah.
well.
So at Smiles Inc., you've got root canal Wednesdays, and those are
Yeah,
only days that you get to schedule root canals just to see how versatile this agent really is.
yeah. I actually yesterday during Christmas, I like launched this feature. It's called like the knowledge base. So we used to internally maintain each group's knowledge base, but then yesterday we decided to like open it up to everyone to like tune it, but like with very good like educational content. Like how do you do prompting properly for like a group? You want to make sure you prompt it, you test it. So like walking the user throughout that whole steps of like, okay, you made this change, great. Now test it before you deploy it. So very
Yeah.
excited about that. I think that type of work will really help us scale because rather than going through support and talking to a human, you can just like do it your own. You
Yeah.
learn how to prompt your agents your own and like fix any issues that you hear from the calls that you're getting.
You're
Yeah,
teaching dentists best software engineering practices. I
exactly.
love this.
That's future.
I've got one more question before we go, which is around why you think in the US specifically today, even though it is possible most of the time to book appointments online, people still want to call.
Yep. Because it's not just about booking the appointment. There's a lot of questions that go around it. You're asking
Mm.
about insurance. How long is it going to take? Do you do the service? Um, do you have parking? We actually get a lot of questions about parking. Like, do you guys have parking in the back? Can I leave my like like clarification questions? So rather than just like booking the appointment, you're asking questions about it. You're asking things like maybe online you couldn't find like a slot in the morning. You want to inquire, like is the doctor in the morning? Can I just like go as a wait list or things of that sort? And with an agent, you can train it to do these things. You have the knowledge base that you can update and like say, yeah, if it's an absolute emergency, just show up. We'll assist you, even if we can't book you in. So things like that people call for. We get a ton of calls in the morning during lunchtime and after hours for the practices that are using Arini as an overflow. And then, of course, there are the practices that are using it for 100% of calls. But these are like the peak hours that we see. It's quite interesting to see the graph. Yeah.